Hi everybody, my name is Joe Sanfilippo. I'm the superintendent in the Fall Creek School District, home of the Fall Creek Crickets. And I am really excited to be with you today to talk about schools and everything that goes on in Fall Creek.
According to Sights and Sounds of the Valley, the first village school was built in 1867 on State Street in Lincoln, now known as Highway 12. The school was one of the very first buildings in the village, later to make room for the Bartz Brothers and Zempel store. The next village school was located on McKinley Avenue on the Webster Biscuit Apartments parking lot. It was made in 1885. Additions were made to the school when the number of pupils increased. By 1916, the pupils outgrew the old four-room schoolhouse, and it moved across the street to make a new 16,000 brick building. The new school was made on February 2nd, 1917. It was located on the corner of Washington Avenue, Wisconsin. The principal at the time was Elmer Johnson, and Henrietta Kopplin was assistant principal. The principal and assistant principal also taught all high school and junior high classes. A new 5-room school was completed in 1860. By 1962, they added 4 classrooms, a kitchen, and a gym. In 1963, they added 2 more classrooms. In 1967, they added an upper section which contained a library, an office area, and 6 additional classrooms. The elementary, middle, and high school were connected to one in 1992.
I'm Mr. Janke and the 4th grade, and then down that hallway to 3rd grade. So 3rd, 4th, and 4th grade, that was all middle school.
Heat in the building was provided first by individual stoves in each room, later by a central hot furnace. Since the heat passageways were near the ceiling room, it was very cold in the winter. Up until 1907, there was no high school classes in Fall Creek. Back then, graduating 8th grade was as big as a deal as high school. The few people that went to school beyond 8th grade went to high school in Eau Claire and Augusta.
According to Sights and Sounds of the Valley, the very first teachers in the village schools were Mary and Kate O'Brien and Christopher Kressel. The teachers had many different rules that we don't have now. One example of a rule is that their dress cannot be any shorter than 2 inches above your ankle. The country school teachers hosted basket socials, Halloween programs, and Christmas programs. Christmas programs were very looked forward to. The teachers were often judged on the quality of the Christmas program rather than the quality of teaching. The teacher had to plan almost all of the Christmas programs. During December, a lot of the normal school routines were pushed aside in order to be ready for the program. After the program, Santa would show up and reward their hard work with treat bags. Verda Dakla was 17 when she started teaching. She only had 2 long, hard years of teaching training. She said, at 17, I had a small country school as small and backwoodsy as it came. I combated head lice, bed bugs, poverty, and cold schoolhouses. I learned to chop wood, shovel snow, build a fire, and bed the fire down for the night.
Teaching, I don't believe, was any different than now, other than the fact that you have a lot of technical appliances.
Sounds of the Valley. The first people to graduate were Caroline Bartz, Odelia Bartz, and Henrietta Kopplin-Voechting. In Yvonne Melville, they would get an hour off of lunch and they would run back home to eat. If they brought a lunch, they'd bring it in an old lard can. Sometimes they would eat lard sandwiches. Lard sandwiches were basically dried pig fat on bread with sugar and spices sprinkled on.
Private buses that went around, and the kids had to pay to ride on the bus. And I know every week the principal at school, he would say, I am now collecting bus dues. And the kids would have to come in and pay their 50 cents for having ridden on the bus for the week.
People had to sit in their seats all the time. They had to raise their hand if they had a question or an answer. If they needed to use the bathroom, they had to raise their index fingers. And the teacher would either nod or deny permission. Most of the desks were double desks, with 2 people sharing a desk. Today, in 2018 and 19, we have around 860 kids in K through 12.
Rural schools, otherwise known as country schools, usually were a 1-room class with 1 teacher. Grades 1 through 8 would all be together in 1 room.
Because if you started at 1st grade and teacher was teaching 2nd grade, you couldn't help but listen to her. You were learning what 2nd grade was learning, and 2nd grade was learning a little bit of what 3rd grade was learning, and so on.
There was no central heating. The rooms usually had a furnace in the basement with a stove in the middle of the room. Rural schools in the 1870s usually had a 5-month term, 3 months in the winter with a man teacher and 2 months in the summer with a woman teacher. By the 1880s, there was 7 to 8 months in a school year. The parents never had to pay for school tuition. Education has always been important. Country families might have to pay for 1 to 2 books. Farmers would pay for some supplies in schools sometimes. The Fall Creek Valley School was probably the first one built in that area. It was built in 1864. The Rodel, Bear Grass, Green Meadow, and Oak Ridge were established in the 1870s. Oak Knoll was built in 1881. The Giesler School was built in 1892. Verda said, "Country people are so good. I love them all and was invited regularly to every home for supper." The country school teacher was always respected, honored, and looked up to by almost everyone. In 1957, the districts around Fall Creek started a petition to join all the schools together. Rural schools came to an end in 1962 when law made it mandatory to have all schools be within high school territories.